Facebook, but he's been in the media a fair bit over the years. He's a former 1%, for those of us that don't understand 1%, former biking enforcer. He's turned his life around and now trying to save youngsters from unfortunately some of the falsehoods of the Brotherhood. The Brotherhood has changed over the years. I'm not going to go into that. I was a former believer of the Brotherhood. I thought it was an amazing group of guys looking after each other. It's changed over the years. It's not the same as 20, 30 years ago. It has changed a lot. Luke will tell you when he addresses us. So guys, please make yourselves at home. If you do want to vent, you do need someone to talk to, someone you click with, please do. But till then, hey guys, let's warm welcome for Luke Hainsworth.
So I guess my story starts out with the polar opposite of who I became. I was a shy, anxious little kid that was bullied, in its most purest of forms, until I was about 13 and decided I had enough of that and enough of living in fear, and actually learned how to use fear as a weapon, and then started expelling it. Proudly, I never became a bully, but there was just this moment where I just could not say no to a fight or whatever. I could not walk by somebody in trouble. And now that's still me, but I just do it in a completely different way. A lot of reporters have asked me prior, why did you become a bikie? And I usually say to them, natural progression. And so they say, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, I was already an outlaw. I had no respect for the police or authority, because they'd come across to me from a young age, targeted me when I hadn't done anything wrong. So the police actually had a big part in creating me and what I became. And also, I love motorbikes. Right now, if antique DT175 was to go past, I'd go, geez, I want to have a ride on that. So that's what I mean by the natural progression. And people talk about the Nike bike era, which I was in, but I refer to myself as a board short bike. I grew up surfing on the beach, all the rest of it. I didn't need to join a club. A lot of people do for security and to feel that they belong. The only reason a young man joins a gang is because they're looking for love, loyalty, and respect, and brotherhood. Sadly, it doesn't exist in that world anymore. And when I joined the club I joined was at the time still very old school, but it was only a matter of months before I realised, this brotherhood, the brotherhood and all the rest of it was just a facade. I saw through it right from the beginning. And there's guys in this room that have known me since I've been 14 and can attest to, that I just, it just went against already all my core values, all my core beliefs. Then at 24, I went to jail for 5.5 years over a fight, a consensual one. I hit a bloke and put him in a coma. It wasn't, it was before that one punch stuff came out, but it wasn't actually my punch, it was his head hitting the ground that put him in the coma, which thank God he's okay now. I did over 20 plus months in solitary confinement, not in one go, but in broken up parts. And for the first 4 years I didn't learn, I didn't change, I was still intent on being a bad person, all the rest of it. And if anyone was to ask me how did I change, the only answer I can give them is God. I encountered God in jail, and then the demons that I've beaten since then, with addiction, your life, where you're actually changing your life. The person I am today, a lot of people I grew up with can't fathom the change in me.
Oh, sorry, mate.
And the only reasoning I can give for that is that I chose to allow God into my life, and He's there for all of us. But it's whatever way we get through things and stuff like that, God, to get the most out of Him, you've got to want Him. Then over self-reflection in jail, after I changed in the last 18 months, I thought, what could have made a difference in my life? You know, I had the best mum you could ever ask for, a good dad, no childhood trauma, no reason to go the way I did. And mum took me to psychs after psych after psych. You know, I was the smartest kid in school, and the school a couple of times said, you know, we don't want him back unless he's medicated. And it wasn't violent or anything like that, it was just a handful. And I was blessed I had a good GP that didn't put me on Ritalin, you know, so saw that, you know, that's obviously associated with learning difficulty, so that wasn't my issue, you know. And thank God for that, otherwise I'd be half the size of what I am now. Growing up, I was at the stage where if I wasn't such an idiot into drugs and all the rest of it, and too busy worrying about trying to be a gangster, I could have played NRL. And I threw that away. And then, like, I'd go back to that self-reflection in jail. Every time I looked at these sites, if I didn't say it out loud, I would have thought it. You know, no idea what I'm going through. And I was right. And this is what places like this is about. You know, real men need real men to talk to sometimes, and it takes a real man to put their hand up and ask for help.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was in that moment of, like, what could have made a difference in my life to me as that young kid? And that was the only answer I could come up with was somebody like me that's been there and seen it and done it, talking to you. Because as a young arrogant man, you're convinced that your parents are only telling you one thing because for their own interest, or whoever's telling you something, you know, and we're all arrogant when we're young. Anyone who says they aren't, they're liars. And I got out of jail and thought things were, you know, I'd changed, thought it was going to be easy. Well, the police don't want to accept that you've changed. You find yourself 30 years old, the fanfares wore off for yourself, you know, the excitement about getting out of jail and all the rest of it, and the only way that you know how to make money is doing the wrong thing. I started going to a church, which my pastor's over there, which he started, and what got me in, and I think everybody's aware of judgment that goes on in churches or just in the world in general, and you know, that's what got me over the line and into Mitch's church was that I went to primary and high school with his wife, so there was a bridge in that gap, and it's been, to get where I am today, it's been a battle, even after, you know, accepting God into my life and just always being on drugs and all that besides. I got stabbed in the face when I was 19, ripped me here, took that whole part of my face off, nearly lost the tip of my nose. From that moment, I think when you go into have something like that happen to you, you either go into two modes. And I have a great friend of mine, a girl that the same thing happened to, and she did the polar opposite of what I did. You either wrap yourself up in cotton wool and think, oh wow, I nearly died, we best, you know, be careful of everything and be scared of everything. Well, my brain went, well, life's short, let's fit as much as we can into it as we can. And proceeded to just be, there wouldn't have been one day from being 19 to, you know, probably, and jail didn't even stop it, where I would have been straight. Not 1 hour of waking moment of the day. Proudly, I don't smoke pot, I don't do anything anymore. I'm down to 1 cigarette a day, which is an achievement in itself, and that, what drives that is, now we're starting this youth foundation called Spartan Youth Australia, which Trent Head and I co-founded, and the whole purpose behind that is to use the mistakes that we've made to help these young blokes stop making it. You know, the world's turned itself into this place where real men don't cry, real men, you know, they don't ask for help. Real men cry. You know, bigger man walks away from a fight. When it's not fear that's stopping you, or capability, and thirdly, even more so if you enjoy that type of activity, it does very much so take the bigger man to walk away from a fight. Then through going out through this process of change, the world couldn't understand me. I felt like I still couldn't get things right, and I tried to overdose, I tried to kill myself. I took enough medication to kill 4 or 5 of you right now, the plain as day. I'm alive for a reason, and I know that reason is to use my life, where I've been, and everything else to help these kids today. The youth of today is disillusioned, to say the least. They're entitled. They do not know what the world's about. They're sheltered, all the rest of it. The way the world is at the moment, political correctness and stuff like that, it's near on impossible to give somebody advice without some group of people getting upset, you know. And on this journey, it's funny because, you know, people would pick me as the last person, anyone that knows me growing up, the last person ever to get to where I am today. Like I said, to the point where people cannot fathom it. When I tried to take my life, that was, like I said, I was already a Christian, already had God in my life, but I just couldn't seem to get it right. Still, you know, and I said, when I was back, when I went and worked in, moved up to Queensland after I got out of jail, was working in rehab for 2 years, and then came back to my hometown, and people, like I said, people can't fathom the change in me. And that was the problem. Real men, I still had a problem with asking for help, making myself vulnerable. You know, to be in a safe space like the Aussie Man Cave's created is such a blessing. It's beyond belief. It's needed today more than it ever has been. To battle your life where you're broke and battling finance and everything like that, and to being someone that literally could walk into wherever and take whatever I wanted is a part of my life that a lot of people will never understand. But I've had this thing in me where I just know that I've got a bigger purpose in my life for a reason. The amount of drugs I took that day, like I said, should have been more than enough to kill me. The amount of times I've cheated death, couldn't even tell you. And all of it doesn't work unless you've got a circle of people around you that are going to be there for you. And no matter what, you're always going to be a product of your environment. If you hang around people that take drugs, you're going to take drugs. If you hang around shitbags, you're going to be a shitbag. That's life. Today, there's nothing more that gives me satisfaction than helping people to the point where it's self-serving, because I actually enjoy it that much. And young men, look at, I mentioned earlier, young men, the only reason they choose to join a gang of any type is because they're looking for that love, loyalty and respect. And if we create that somewhere else, that will come. My poor mother, which is the sweetest lady you could ever imagine, never hear her say a bad word about anything about it to anyone. You know, to get to 32 years old, 33 years old, and for the first time know that your mum isn't stressed about you, is so rewarding, it's not funny. It is, and that's what drives me today to go and help this youth, because someone needs to help them, you know. And no matter what we're going through in life, my 100% of had enough is going to be different to yours. You know, your 100% is going to be different to your 100%. Even whatever issues they are, don't ever think that, someone else's problems are more greater than your own, because whatever your life is, that 100% is still 100%. You know, and we need people around us that, first of all, we need to be able to be man enough to put our hand up and say, hey mate, I need help, I'm struggling. And I still had a problem with that, and that's why, you know, I'd come out and make myself vulnerable in the papers and things like that. But to then go and look back on in hindsight and go and have an attempt at my life, that was pride and ego getting in the way of me saying, hey mate, like, you know, I need a hand, I'm not coping. I had a motorbike accident. I've had a couple, but the recent, as you would have seen on that photo, looked quite different. That was only 6 months ago. I was 176 kilos, I'm 124, it's 122 right now. Woo!
Well done, man. Well done, man.
What drives that is actually my mental health. As men, we were built to go out, be hunters, to be alphas, to be this. So exercise is a must for us all. I know at school and everything like that, the teachers tell us that it releases endorphins and all the rest, but you cannot stop it. They don't stress it enough, and I cannot explain the benefits of it enough. It is not just an outlet. The way that it makes you feel is something that no other drugs can even compare to. And like I said, what drives this the whole time is my compassion for other men. And we need it. In the society we live in today, it's a dog-eat-dog world. You know, even if you just start succeeding, you better yourself. Australia has this tall poppy syndrome, you know, where everyone around you gets jealous straight away and they just want to chop it off, you know, chop you down to whatever their level is. And that's sad. I see people that succeed, mate of mine in the corner that, opened a nightclub and known him since he was 16, all the rest of it. Yet so many people that were hating on him when he's the best bloke you'll ever meet, just because of success. And he only got that success through hard work. And success doesn't fall into anybody's lap. Getting your life right doesn't fall into your lap. You have to work at it, but you don't have to do it alone. It's impossible to do alone. Where, I've got God in my life, which I cannot have done it without him, but it's also the people, my circle that I choose to surround myself with, that is imperative. And pride and ego is man's biggest problem. With that notion of putting your hand up and saying you need help, especially, being you're very much so alpha male type and things like that, society thinks that's a weakness. Mate, it takes a million times stronger man to approach somebody and say, hey, I'm struggling with life, I need a hand, than to go and write yourself off on the drugs and go and be getting street fights all the time. That's what's hard. And sadly, it shouldn't be, but that's what society's made it as. God made us and made us for it all differently. And what he did was he made it the easiest thing is to be yourself. But sadly today in society and how everything interacts, it's one of the most difficult things in the world right now, is to just go out and be yourself. Most people I grew up with, that's why my circle's small, because they're too busy painting to the world this facade. Not just gang members, not just whatever, there's this whole social media contest between mothers and children's birthdays, for example. Someone does that, then they want to trump them and spend more money, while outwardly they're in a shit relationship, they're not happy, but they're still trying to portray to the world that they are. If you're not happy, tell somebody, but also be prepared to listen to somebody's advice. As men, it's hard if your ego and pride's still in the way, it is very hard for us to accept that the advice that somebody's given us. And that's why I believe God's got me where he is at the moment, because relatability is key. And through what the Australian Man Cave have done, no matter what your genre in life, no matter what your lifestyle, no matter what your past, you will find somebody that has gone through what you're going through. And I think our brain always tells us, nobody's going to understand we're going through, and that, traps us also into not asking for help. I can't do life alone. None of us can. We weren't meant to do life alone. Having a circle of security around you is the most, by far, of people that, I was a person who had a million friends. Everyone would say they're my mate, because they had something to benefit from it or whatever. If you've got two handfuls of people that you can count on, no matter what, no matter why, no matter when, you're blessed.
Amen. Absolutely.
And to have a foundation like the Australian Man Cave out there that's purposely built to break down the barriers and to get people into this is amazing. There's nothing short of it, and it's so needed. The rate of men's suicide is completely ridiculous. It's not addressed anywhere near enough in the media. The rate of youth suicide is not addressed at all. It doesn't even get the traction it needs in media. And that comes from where they're saying they put out there, it's not worth to speak, which is true. A school kid cannot go to a schoolyard without expecting to and open up and be vulnerable like that, without expecting to be chewed up and spat out. There's always going to be teenagers that are bullies. That's their mentality. Which, like I said again, it comes down to being what's happening in that case is these kids are opening up to the wrong people. They're going to school, sharing what's going on, and they're pretty much telling them, you're full of shit, you don't really want to kill yourself. And then people will go out just because they're being told that and actually try it. A good friend of mine, his nephew is 16 years old, he's got a contract with the GWS Giants already. I think if I was 16 with no addiction problems and a contract like with the football team like that, happy days. He tried to kill himself for that exact reason. He was struggling, reached out, but it's not appropriate in that place, in the schoolyard, for other school kids to be, doing that. We've been approached recently by IBS TV, which is an international company. They're doing a documentary at the moment about mentoring boys from jail. Because sadly, as the system sits at the moment, it's destined for you to fail. It's designed for you to fail. You know, to have a parole officer that tells you a leper can't change its spots, and then they wanted to throw me back in jail because I got my first proper job in 10 years, and if I went to work, they were going to breach me and put me back in jail. To come home and try and tell you as straight as an arrow mother that, it's so hard for them to understand. But I think, you know, why I'm here today is men feel like they're not a man if they cry or if they whatever. If I'm at church or in a situation where I'm crying, I don't try and hide it. I'll make sure everybody sees it. Because people look at me and they see this alpha male and this tough guy image and whatever. The heart of compassion and everything else in me, I'm a speck in the eye. He's a giant compared to what I look like on the outside. Going to things like this and reaching out to people is scary, no doubt, especially if it's your first time. You don't know what to expect, and sadly, like I said, you expect to be judged because that's how the world operates. And we have to do something about it. And it's not going to be, I can't stand idly by now and watch a good thing happen to a bad thing happen to a good person. I deal with it differently now. I don't go and smack their head in like I used to. But this world, the government, you know, this is something that Trent and I have talked about with Spartan Youth Australia. I'd love to be able to tell these young blokes that they can trust police, but I can't. I can't tell them that. All I can do is empower them on their responsibilities, but also their rights. And this doesn't come under every single police officer, but sadly, the majority represent for the few that are good, you know, that want to actually make a difference and help people. And to be going through battles that you feel like you're alone and that nobody else is going to relate and all the rest of it, complete utter bullshit. I've been it. You know, and even at that time, it wasn't pride and ego that was stopping me from asking out. It was, I guess, I changed my life already, so I guess I was scared of admitting I backtracked, you know, or I'd gotten myself into this bad space. So I crashed my bike. I was already suffering from institutionalisation, bad anxiety, and I got, like I said, I blew down to 176 kilos because I was stuck at home on the lounge and they got me back or things like that. But then the institutionalisation and my social anxiety grew to a point where I wouldn't even leave the house. And if you get like that, you can't do it on your own. You know, we need to ask for help. There's people in this room that don't need help doing anything in life. But when it comes to what's going on in your heart and what's going on in your mind and in your life, we need help. We weren't meant to do life alone. You know, it's just the government, the police, the world in general has done such a great job at isolating us. You know, and Australia, sadly, being, I think, one of the worst countries in the world where, you know, like my father's generation, you know, real men don't cry, and sadly that's even in my generation. When you see someone that needs help, put your hand out, because you don't know if that's the only hand they're going to get. You don't know how much that's going to mean to them. It costs nothing to be nice, you know, and when people don't know what's going on and things like that, you can't expect them also to be mind readers. So if you do want help, you need to inform someone, like I said, someone you trust, someone that, you know, is relatable and you know that's not going to judge you. But I think we need to realise there's a whole lot more of those type of people out there than what we want to think. You know, me and Lou were talking just before I got here, and you know, you get involved in policies and stuff in the government about them, and they're too worried about being the wording of it, you know, being politically correct, you know, worrying about offending people and stuff like this. You know, these days the minority has the power. You can't disagree with anything. You know, you're talking about using words to pretty much make it. You can't saying anything against it would make you a bigot or a racist or whatever.
there's a pro-hunger minister, anti-hunger, minister in America today. Now, just that wording, if you disagree with anything that person says, all of a sudden you're pro-hunger. Who the hell is pro-hunger? Nobody wants the world, anyone to be in this world to, not be to eat, to whatever. And there's over 15,500 homeless children under the age of 12 right now in Australia. And it's a country that should not be happening in. And I often tell this to people I know that sponsor kids in Africa, things like that. And this comes back down to, in every aspect of life, don't look past the nose on your face. If you notice something up with a friend of yours, they're out of character, they're doing things out of character, or they're withdrawn, go and approach them. Because like I said, you don't know if that hand you put out is the only one they're going to get. You don't know, if someone road rages against you and goes off their head, don't react. Because you've got no idea what they're going through. They may have just lost their mother the day before, they may have just been diagnosed with cancer. It's about being a bigger man and actually wanting good for the whole of society, not just for yourself. This world has become all about being selfish, to be selfless and just to do something, small gestures of kindness. You will never understand it. You may not ever even speak to the person again to know how much that actually meant to them. And it's scary. The way the world is today, and you pretty much can't have an opinion on anything without being labelled as a bigot, a racist, or one of the other few. And suicide is a scary thing. You feel like you're alone before it. You feel like that's it. And anybody that knows me would have thought I would never do that. I'd have bet my life on it before it, that I would never do something like that. But I got to this stage where I convinced myself there was no one out there I could talk to. There was no one out there that would understand what I was going through. And that is nothing but complete bullshit. But that's, society ingrains into us that, that's, you've kind of got to keep your shit to yourself and all the rest of it. That's not how life works. It does work like that, but it'll be unsuccessful every time. There's always somebody out there that both needs help, and there's always somebody out there that no matter what your financial situation, no matter how busy your life is, whatever, you can help. And you never know how much, just a smile at somebody, you don't know what that means to some people. You don't know what they're going through. And I just can't encourage you guys enough, men in Australia, women in Australia, youth in Australia, just to reach out. There's always going to be somebody that will take that hand. But also as men that have, got through these battles ourselves, we need to be that one throwing them hands out. Because like I said, we do not know, no one knew about mine. And that's because that's my fault. Because I chose not to ask for help. I chose not to bring mates of mine that I know, that have been there through my life to get through things. And society's coached us into this thing where, real men don't reach out, you can't show weakness, all the rest of it. That's not reality. Reality is we all have our down days. Somebody who's just been divorced, that may be their 100%. Somebody who's just got cancer, that may be their 100% or when they're at breaking point. But it comes back down to, you don't know. You never know how much a small gesture of kindness is going to mean to someone. They might walk away and forget about it, that it happened. But it could be a life-changing event. Just to ask somebody how they are, and when people see sincerity in that, is rare. We live in a world where people will get on a train, there's kids and things like that. We'll not even get up for elderly anymore, And that's part of one of the things we're starting in Australia is I want to bring back gentlemen. I was speaking to an SBS reporter, it would have been about a year ago now, and I said to him, how many gentlemen do you know? And he went to answer really quickly. And I said, no. I said, how many people do you know that you would describe being using the word gentleman to describe their character? And he paused for a long while and then said, my father. And I said, exactly, it's a dying trait. And we need to be gentlemen. Gentlemen is so many things that, that we all should be, but it's just been lost. We live in this machoistic ego-driven, prideful world where materials possessions mean that, you know, that's who you are. Material possessions don't mean shit. It's what's in here that counts. And wherever you are in life in here, you can always get better. The moment you think you've stopped learning about anything in life, if you're a mechanic and you think you stopped learning about mechanics, you just started to fail. You rode to failure, because we will never ever we'll never ever hey Charlie, how are you, mate?
Hey, sorry about that.
It's society has choked the ability for real men for alpha males and people like that to reach out and ask for help. You know, it's sad beyond belief. I'm a man from 14 that's been not scared of. Anyone doesn't say they don't feel fear is full of shit. I just learned how to embrace it and use it as a weapon. But to open your heart up to people, that's what's really brave. To be there for someone, or to open your heart when you are struggling, that's bravery. You know, it's beyond bravery. You know, the world that we live in, if you do that, you're weak. You know, and that's not the cause. That's not the answer whatsoever. It's all about, you know, the world trying to better yourself, trying to be there for somebody else when they need it, but they can't be there unless you let them. So, I guess, you know, anything you do in this life, you can always be better at. And like I said, you sense somebody needs help, or if you need help, put your hand out, because somebody will grab it. But then also in us that are on the, you know, that have pretty much conquered our demons, we need to realise that we may only be the only hand that gets put out to somebody. And the youth of today is disillusioned for a reason. They weren't born like that. It's their parenting, the way that everything's happened like that, and they're in trouble. You know, we had 15, 16-year-olds knowing they were going to die at Gallipoli, and that's the reason we live in this country free now. 15, 16-year-olds today, you know, want to jump up and down about climate change and everything else, not knowing anything about it, but then say COVID, for example. A pandemic hits, yet they're not responsible enough to go out, to not go out nightclub. You know, it's something, and if we expect them to get better, we have to get better. We have to, you know, we have to lead by example. I'm 34. I've been through it, been and seen and done it all, and that's relatability is key. But also in that, you know, if you were somebody in this room right now that needed to talk to me about something, whatever, just because I was a bikie or whatever and you weren't, that means crap. That doesn't, don't let that get in the way. If you know, a real man is happy to help people. If you're in the position that you can, you're blessed. You know, there's plenty of people, like I mentioned earlier, about not looking past the nose on your face. There's kids in this country today that are going to school with no lunch. And I've called people up, they'll tell me, oh, they're sponsored for in Africa and stuff. That's the first thing I say, don't look past the nose on your face. And that goes as far down to, if you see your neighbour going through some dramas, or you see a change in them, and you don't speak, you know, that's the thing where Australia's, you know, changed a lot, especially, you know, some of the older guys realise that you know, in my street where I got, we knew all the neighbours, you know, and today you're living next to a stranger that you never communicate with, all the rest of it, and that's what the government wants. They want you to feel isolated. They don't want you to feel like you can get, there's help out there. And real men, like I said, real men ask for help. And you are also a real man when you know that, just like I said, with the neighbour, going over and asking them, are they okay? And do you need a hand with anything and what's going on? You don't know if you're going to be the only person that asks them that. And I tell you right now, I don't know about you guys, but if I woke up and thought, if I pulled up in my driveway one day and thought, oh, maybe I should go and ask old mate how he's doing, and then found out the next day that he'd taken his life, I would be completely shattered. Because something so small can mean so much to people. And to reach out, to, you know, to be, like I said, the person who I was, people can't fathom the change in me. But when you really know what life's about, stop being a weak. And, you know, I always had anxiety, things like that as a kid, but I was, you know, self-medicating with drugs and alcohol, but before bringing God into my life, and, you know, what works for you, but I would not be alive right now without God. One, just supernatural things in itself, where, like, you know, I've been on the trauma room on the slab and they're saying he's going to die, and I haven't. I'm 34 and I've got a hospital record taller than Lou in paper form. I'm not kidding you. I've had that many surgeries, that many, because after I got stabbed, I was living life like, even though I rode a bike, it was like people thought I had a death wish, you know. And I was that arrogant young man, no one could tell me anything or all the rest of it. But it's all about brotherhood. And we need to create that. And like I said, the only reason a young man does join a gang is because they're looking for love, loyalty, respect and belonging. We have to create that. As being the older generation, we're obliged. I don't see it any other way. For, you know, and millennial parents have got it wrong a lot. But some of these kids don't have parents that are decent role models. They grow up in social housing which was built for us all to be oppressed. If your mum and dad doesn't go to work and you don't see them achieving anything, but also their neighbours, the whole street, that's all they see, that's all they know. You know? So we need to be there for one, for each other, two, for the kids of today. And they're in trouble and they're our future. They are Australia. You know, we are Australia, but they are with, you know, the up and coming. And there's never been a time today where they need us more than ever. And I think also that we need each other more than ever. With COVID, you know, I'm sure you guys that if you haven't done jail, you still would have experienced isolation to a certain point. That is not good for anyone. A kid doesn't belong in a jail cell. And no one chooses a lifestyle to go to jail. It's either childhood trauma or your mental health condition or whatever, and then you're judged by society and you go off and run with it. And that's sad. It is really, really sad. To be here talking to you guys today about my battles is like, you know, I remember the first time I got up and spoke at a church. And I said, I hope you guys realise that, you know, only a few months ago we'd much rather have got up and fought all ears than get up and speak in front of someone, you know, because it was uncomfortable for me. But we need to be examples. You know, no matter how wrong we've got life prior, we start getting it right now. And I think also we're too hard on ourselves, you know. You start getting things right, you know, you can never stop being a better person or trying to be a better person. The moment you think you know everything about anything, you're on the road to failure. And my story is a great example. I was a shy and anxious little kid that got picked on, and at 14 got sick of it. You learn how to use fear as a weapon, and became someone that I can proudly say I never did a bad thing to a good person. But and this is another realisation I had to have. Whether I choose to be a bikie and get around with big gold chains on my neck and whatever, Windsor Media does a great job of glamorising that. They don't put the photos up here when they're in jail, feeling sorry for themselves and crying and whatever. They put the one with the big fat gold chain on them and all the rest of it. So I had to realise that no matter what lifestyle I choose, kids are going to look up to me. So to bettering yourself is not just for yourself. It can be, I'm sure most of you guys have kids. I don't yet. Definitely on the cards. I can't wait. But in saying that, you know, I would like to think that having kids early in life, that might have changed me. It wouldn't have. I would have provided for the kid in all the wrong ways, and I had this moment of self-reflection in jail where I've always prided myself on being a protector. Anyone that knows me knows that I've gone above and beyond in you know, scary situations, always for somebody else, because I can't leave no man behind. And that's the way we all should be. You know, it's this life's hard. I think the moment that we admit that life is a fight, and it's going to continually be one, to stay in a good mental health space, to be successful in life, the better we are. You know, if you think life's easy, even becoming a Christian, I was under this disillusionment of, you know, life's going to be so much easier. Mate, it is 10, 100, 1,000 times harder to live life as a Christian than to be who I used to be. that was easy. And like I said, you guys and everybody needs to know that the hand you put out may only be the only one. And you also need to realise these are people that are in a situation that do need help. Real men cry, real men ask for help. That's what that takes a real, that's the definition of a real man. A man that speaks from the heart, isn't worried, hasn't got a filter on or a facade on to make themselves look out something they are in public. Social media, it's so easy to look like, my social media looked like I was doing fine when I tried to kill myself. You know, and it's so easy to paint this picture today, and it's scary, you know, and the boys of today, we need to realise that we need to leave a legacy. You know, the problem we all have in the men's suicide rate is crazy. We all know that. The youth suicide rate is on another level altogether. And these kids are disillusioned, feel entitled, and that's from the way that they've been governed. You know, our education system's archaic. We have one teacher at the slouched front, 30 desks, and it's been like that for hundreds of years. Teaching the same subjects, trying to put somebody into a box. You know, I always felt like I didn't belong. I don't fit in any box. I break every mould that, you know, society wants to try and label you as. And I struggled with that for so long, you know, but it was all internal, and I had all this internal rage, you know. And like I said, I had a sort of moment of reflection in jail about being a protector, and I thought, how good can I protect my family, which mean the absolute most to me, while I'm in jail? I can't do it. It's physically impossible. So I had to make a choice, what I was going to do with my life. And I would not be sitting here right now, regardless of, you know, things that I've done where I should have died. I would not be here without God in my life. It is something that, you know, you get what you put into it. God is everything. When everything else is going bad or whatever, Jesus will be there for you. He died for sinners like us. The world we live in today is both an honour and a blessing to live in the world we live in today. To see the corruption, the sick stuff people are doing to kids, and getting away with it is abhorrent. It terrifies me, you know, and that's why men like us need to stand up and be alpha males, but in the pro-social way, not being antisocial and being there and being for people. And you guys, you know, I'm sure you guys know about, look, I've gone over and over about reaching out, but I can't stress the importance of it. You know, everything in your head will tell you that they can't relate, they won't understand, they'll think I'm stupid if I talk to them about that. You've talked to like I said, you've got to get, and Lou mentioned earlier about this being a safe space. You do need someone that you trust to open up to. And I think with the Australian Man Cave, if you're living a life where there's no one in your life like that, that's what it's for. You know, and we all need in the, you know, in youth services, they call it your circle of security. And circle of security is so imperative. Like I said, to be my age, 34 now, been through what I've been through, and have, you know, 2 handful of people that I can count on whenever, whatever, however, with no judgment, is more than a blessing. You know, you can have these million friends and whatever, really they're frenemies. They're enemies. As soon as you start succeeding and doing good in life, they're jealous, or they're, like I said, the Australian tall poppy syndrome, where people want to start succeeding, and people want to chop them off and bring them back down. And the whole world's like that at the moment. And if we don't all do something about it and be there for each other, we'll stand in turn, we'll be there for the youth, we're all doing it.
Yep.
It's, you know, what are we doing here? What are we living for? What are we even breathing for? What are we, you know, you've got to find your purpose. You've got to find what makes you happy in life. You have to surround yourself with positive people. Yes, they are hard to find, but don't settle. And that goes for relationships too, guys. For you guys that have settled down for women, you know, because it's time to settle down and this, Don't settle. Go and get what you deserve. Be someone that's get someone that's on your page. Every day, get up in the morning and say, God, how can I be a better person today? What can I do? And you can't ever stop being a better. There's no such thing as being the best person on earth or knowing everything. Every single day we can become better people. And if I'm only one step ahead of somebody in that journey, I'm still one step ahead, and I can help them. And if we don't all get behind each other and support each other, we do. Especially today, this day and age, where the government and the police, mate, they're on another level where freedom. We think we're free. Society thinks we're free. Anyone who you mention anything about, this COVID agenda and all the rest, you're a conspiracy theorist. It's like, a dog on a chain. If you just take one link off that chain every day, he's not going to notice. But sooner or later, he's got no freedom and he's tied up at the neck and got nowhere to go. And sadly, there's so many Australians out there right now that I used to say emus bury their head in the sand. I used to refer to them as emus, but flamingos actually bury their head in mud when they're in danger. That's what they do. They're too scared to open their eyes and admit to themselves exactly what's going on in this world. That pedophilia does go to the highest ranks in everything. I think growing up as a kid and you get told this stuff about, judges and people like that, you take it with this grain of salt, like it's, that can't be true. But there's adults out there, and we're blessed with free thinking, that still just want to deny that any of this stuff's happening because they're too scared to accept reality. And if we don't do something about that, if we just sit idly by, I might as well go back and be a dickhead, start taking drugs again and be a gangster. Because that's if you're not trying to do something with your life to better yourself and to be better for those around you, for your children, for your friends, for whoever, what's it about? What are we here for? God put us here for a reason. Everyone is different. Everybody has their own lane. Recognise what lane you're in, and then go from there. And like I said, if you're only one step ahead, where you were when you were trying to kill yourself or whatever, that person might need you. Like I can't stress enough that you guys don't understand. Most people do not understand that putting a hand out to somebody, that might be their only hand they get. You don't understand, but just the other day, it was a few weeks ago now, we had a heat wave in Wollongong, and there's a guy there passed out, red as raw. You could tell he was a homeless guy. And me and a mate of mine stopped. We thought we better check he's okay. And we woke him up. He thought, first of all, he was startled and thought police. And relax, mate, do I look like a copper? I'm not a copper. And gave him all the water. I don't know how much, Australians today drive past people that need help and don't even give it a second thought. For all I know, that guy might have been one going to kill himself that afternoon. And me just a kind gesture, especially of somebody that to look at you wouldn't think would be that way inclined, because the world does such a great job at, we all judge. Subconsciously to a certain point we all judge, and I break that mold. I'm sure most of you guys, when you first looked at me when I walked in, I wasn't going to talk about, and open up and being vulnerable and things like that. But it is, I believe that's why God's drawing staunch men to the church, to show them other people, that this, and then like I said, I could drop sticks at what I'm doing now, which I'm still battling financially at the moment to get ahead and get everything and get my youth organisation going. I could drop sticks now and be in a penthouse tonight if I wanted to go back to my old lifestyle. But I refuse to do that. And without, talking about things too much and going over things, we are obligated as the older generation to help kids, to help each other. Going back in years gone by, we lived in villages and we're there to support people. And that old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. It does, and I can't stress enough, just example me giving that guy that bottle of water. I don't, he may have, why don't all of us do that anymore? Why do people stop when they see someone that needs help? None of, 99% of people don't do it.
They don't.
They don't do it. Either they don't care, or I know that's not my problem.
Selfish, that's what he's talking about.
Amen. Amen, Charlie. And that's the society's created this thing to make us be all about ourselves, where that's not what life's about. You're never going to be successful if the number one goal is just you and what you want. And to find where I am now, and like if just giving that guy that bottle of water was nothing. That took no time, day, no time, whatever. But you know how good it makes you feel just when you help someone for no reason. But nobody, like Charlie said, everybody most people in this world today are that selfish. They'll not even pull over to talk to a homeless person. When I moved to Queensland, I was working in the rehab up there. I started working with feeding the homeless. And my first role when I went there, because it was all females, was to make them feel safer, because it was open to everybody, whether addicts, drunks, whatever. And within a week, I was eating with them. All these people have a story, and they all need help. And all these people that have got to that, anyone in addiction is not having fun anymore. They're numbing the pain. And the way it is these days, people are addicted to something, you pretty much brush from, that for being any good. There's something behind that. If someone's unhappy, there's something behind that. And if they're not ready enough to put a hand up, put that hand out. Because I don't know about you guys, but I couldn't live with myself if I saw that and felt that, hang on, I need to give that guy a hand, and then kept walking past, and then hear something happen to him. It'd break my heart. And the blessing I have with me, like I said, is relatability. And kids today, they listen to me because, like I said, mentioned earlier, my mum taking me to psych when I was an angry young kid, and if I didn't say it out loud, it would have been right. I'm saying that they got no effing idea of what I'm going through. But there's always, it doesn't matter if you're a ex-bikie or you're this or you're that, you're always going to be relatable to someone. And it doesn't have to just go back to you. It goes back to go on and see how your neighbour is. Go on and see it. And if we don't do this now for each other, and then in turn for the youth of today, we're all doomed. None of us can I can't do life without God, but I also can't do it without friends and good friends around me. It's it's impossible. But in wrapping up, guys, it's just, and I know I've repeated myself a few times here, but it's just trying to stress. I can't stress it enough. The need for organisations like Aussie Man Cave, for Spartan Youth Australia, which is the foundation that Sharon and I have co-founded, and we're going to work with the Aussie Man Cave.
Amen.
It's imperative, the things like they're just that. Don't ever drive past or walk past somebody that you think might need help. Ask, because a lot of people aren't ready to put their hand out. To ask for help. So put that hand down.
Kids are killing themselves. Understand, guys, the biggest killer of men, between the ages of 14 and 45 is suicide. That is the biggest, it's beyond heart attacks, beyond cancer, beyond all that, it is suicide. No one talks about it.
Amen.
No one talks about it. Luke's hit on just so many important points. Right? God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. As mates, we're supposed to listen twice as much as we speak.
Amen.
Okay? So, again, just emphasising and cementing what Luke is saying. Yeah? We're meant to listen. Our mates need us. Shut the fuck up and listen.
Yep.
So many guys going, I don't know what to say. Guess what? You don't have to say anything. Listen.
Amen.
Listen. For four years of my life, I've confessed this many times in church. Yeah? I never hit anyone that I wasn't paid to. I lived that life. There's a man here that credits me for teaching him everything. Yeah? I didn't teach him enough. And I love him with all my heart and always have. I didn't teach him enough. Why? Because you don't know. Grab a beer. Mine's 50 lashes. That's not a hint. You won't get anything.